Kennedy's leadership under fire, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Imagine the world on the brink of nuclear war. This was the Cuban Missile Crisis, a tense standoff that brought humanity frighteningly close to disaster. The stakes were unimaginably high, and the world held its breath. The Cuban Missile Crisis unfolded in October 1962. It was a confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union over Soviet ballistic missiles deployed in Cuba. This 13-day crisis is often considered the closest the Cold War came to escalating into a full-scale nuclear war. During the Cold War, the US and the Soviet Union were locked in a fierce geopolitical struggle. Each superpower sought to expand its influence and ideology globally. Tensions were perpetually high, with both nations amassing vast arsenals of nuclear weapons. Cuba, under Fidel Castro's leadership, aligned itself with the Soviet Union after the Cuban Revolution. This alliance made Cuba a pivotal player in the Cold War. Its proximity to the US turned it into a strategic hotspot, escalating tensions further. The crisis began when American reconnaissance planes discovered Soviet missiles in Cuba. These missiles had the capability to strike major US cities within minutes. The discovery set off alarm bells in Washington, D.C., leading to urgent deliberations on how to respond. When President Kennedy first learned of Soviet missiles in Cuba, he faced an unprecedented threat. The immediate reaction was a mixture of shock, urgency, and determination. He knew swift and decisive action was crucial. Kennedy quickly assembled his closest advisors, forming the Executive Committee of the National Security Council. This group, known as ExComm, was tasked with evaluating the crisis and recommending a course of action to address the threat. Potential military responses were thoroughly analyzed. Options ranged from airstrikes to a full-scale invasion. Each had significant risks, including the potential for catastrophic escalation into full nuclear war, making their decision incredibly complex. Diplomatic solutions were also considered. Some advisors suggested negotiations or a United Nations intervention. However, there were concerns that diplomacy alone might be perceived as weakness, emboldening the Soviet Union and jeopardizing global security. Ultimately, Kennedy decided on a naval blockade, termed a quarantine, to prevent further Soviet shipments of military equipment to Cuba. This approach balanced military pressure with a measured response, aiming to avoid immediate escalation while demonstrating firm resolve. On October 22, 1962, President Kennedy addressed the nation, revealing the presence of Soviet missiles in Cuba. His calm yet firm demeanor communicated the gravity of the situation and the necessity for decisive action to ensure global security. The American public reacted with a mix of fear and support for Kennedy's leadership. Many were anxious about the potential for nuclear war, yet rallied behind the president's call for unity and the measures taken to protect the nation. Khrushchev's initial response to the crisis was a combination of defiance and caution. He communicated with Kennedy, emphasizing the defensive nature of the missiles, yet understood the need to engage in dialogue to prevent escalation. Amid the public and official exchanges, tense negotiations took place behind closed doors. Diplomats and advisors from both sides worked tirelessly to find a resolution, understanding the precariousness of the situation and the devastating consequences of failure. Secret back-channel communications played a crucial role in resolving the crisis. These discreet exchanges allowed both superpowers to negotiate terms away from public scrutiny, ultimately leading to a peaceful resolution and the de-escalation of tensions. The U-2 spy plane incident heightened tensions as an American aircraft was shot down over Cuba, escalating fears of imminent conflict. This tragic event underscored the volatility of the situation and the high stakes involved. President Kennedy remained steadfast, demonstrating remarkable resolve under pressure. His leadership through this critical moment showcased his ability to manage crises, balancing military preparedness with diplomatic efforts to avoid catastrophic outcomes. The eventual agreement to remove Soviet missiles from Cuba marked a pivotal resolution. In exchange, the United States made secret concessions, including the removal of American missiles from Turkey, showcasing the intricate diplomacy at play. Kennedy's public announcement of the crisis resolution brought immense relief. His address reassured Americans and the world that a nuclear disaster had been averted, highlighting the success of careful negotiation and strategic decision-making. The immediate aftermath saw a significant shift in US-Soviet relations. The resolution of the Cuban Missile Crisis opened channels for better communication, paving the way for future agreements aimed at reducing the threat of nuclear war. The Cuban Missile Crisis left a lasting mark on US-Soviet relations, fostering a climate of cautious diplomacy. The resolution highlighted the necessity of direct communication channels and paved the way for future arms control agreements, easing Cold War tensions. Long-term impacts of the crisis included the establishment of protocols to avoid nuclear confrontation. Both superpowers recognized the potential for mutual destruction, leading to strategic arms limitation talks and agreements that sought to prevent the escalation of nuclear threats. Kennedy's leadership during the crisis underscored the importance of measured decision-making. His ability to balance military readiness with diplomatic outreach became a model for crisis management, influencing future U.S. foreign policy and presidential decision-making under pressure. Khrushchev's handling of the situation had profound implications for Soviet leadership. Though he managed to secure some concessions, the perceived retreat in the face of U.S. pressure weakened his position, eventually contributing to his ousting from power in 1964. Intelligence played a crucial role in the crisis, with U.S. reconnaissance revealing the Soviet missile installations in Cuba. This pivotal discovery underscored the significance of accurate intelligence, shaping future espionage and surveillance strategies during the Cold War. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, media coverage played a crucial role in shaping public perception. News outlets delivered constant updates, creating a climate of intense anxiety and urgency, highlighting the power of media in influencing global discourse and opinion. International reactions to the crisis varied, with some nations voicing support for U.S. actions while others urged restraint. The situation underscored the complex web of global alliances and the far-reaching impact of superpower confrontations. In response to the crisis, the Nuclear Test Ban Treaty emerged as a pivotal step toward preventing nuclear war. This agreement marked a significant move towards arms control, aiming to reduce the threat of nuclear confrontation in the future. The Cuban Missile Crisis remains a crucial reference in modern international relations, emphasizing the importance of diplomacy, communication, and restraint. Its lessons continue to guide current leaders in navigating the complexities of global nuclear tensions. Studying Cold War history and its lessons is essential for understanding contemporary international dynamics. By reflecting on past crises like the Cuban Missile Crisis, we can better appreciate the delicate balance required to maintain global peace today.